what these are. So the modellable risk factors, these are a set of risk factors that are subject to capital charge under the IMA. Whereas non-modellable risk factors, these are subject to stress scenarios under IMA. So see here, there's a difference. There's a stress scenario here, and they're subject to capital charge under it. So let's try to dig deeper to understand what is a modellable risk factor and its properties, and a non-modellable risk factor and their properties as well. So generally, you can think of modellable risk. So you can think of these from a liquidity point of view. So crux of that is how liquid a certain risk factor is and whether it's clearly visible, etc. So that is what is elaborated in this table below. So let's go through this one by one. So look at the modellable risk factor first. So a risk factor is said to be modellable if it has a representative transaction with a history of prices which are easily available. Then there should be at least 24 prices available per year, gap between any two observations. So out of these 24, at least 24, right? So out of any two observations, I mean, the gap should be less than 1 month. And we keep on verifying this criteria on a monthly basis, so as to understand whether a risk factor is still liquid enough, i.e. can it still be qualified as a modellable risk factor or not. Now, capital charge for modellable risk factors will be given as capital charge as per expected shortfall model plus the default risk charge. So these are a few properties for the modellable risk factors. Now, let's look at the non-modellable risk factors. Now, if a risk factor does not have 24 observations per year, it is considered a non-modellable. One can imagine that this is like a kind of an illiquid risk factor. So for non-modellable risk factors, the concerned products are naturally going to be illiquid, because if your risk factors itself are not available, how exactly will we use them in the products, isn't it? So concerned products also are treated as illiquid. The liquidity horizon must be greater than the gaps in the price observations. So we had seen a mention of liquidity horizon earlier as well. So that way, appropriate liquidity horizon needs to be used. Now, for non-modellable, no correlation or diversification may be assumed, because firstly, these are non-modellable, i.e. they are illiquid risk factors. So that way, these benefits of diversification, etc., cannot be used. And capital charge is calculated separately using the idea of a prudent stress scenario. So something which we'll talk about in one of the subsequent slides as well. And of course, as you may expect, the capital charge for non-modellable risk factors is higher than the capital charge for modellable risk factors. Now, the overall capital charge under the internal models approach for FRTB is a combination of a few components. So we have the risk charge for expected shortfall, we have the risk charge for DRC, we have the risk charge for a stressed capital add-on, and we have the SA for all of the non-approved trading desks. Because remember, not every trading desk might receive approval. So if it's a non-approved trading desk, naturally that is someone who cannot use the IMA, so they have to use SA.